Hey guys, it's Mike, another GoG Guardians video. Today we have a little bit of a different one. I'm actually going to roll through some of the things I've been talking about, changes that could come to the game that would be really beneficial, but I'm going to kind of highlight those looking at an old account I have with Raid Shadow Legends and talking about kind of the perks and the benefits of each of those things and how this game could really step up and become much more enjoyable for the everyday player. So the first thing is, and we've talked about it time and time again, the limited amount of players in the game. Again, when you look at your legendary characters, you look at your epics and your rares, there's probably less than 100 characters in the game that you can get. And then you do have the purchasable characters as well, but I don't know what the total number of those actually is. But let's just say maybe 200 total players or total Guardians in the game, which isn't necessarily too bad for as young as the game is, but with more than half of those players behind a paywall, it definitely is limiting for your everyday player. And we talked about the benefits of having a free-to-play friendly game, because that's going to drive the market. The pay-to-win players are going to have to compete against somebody, and the free-to-play players are going to try to be competitive without spending money, and that's part of the game, that's part of the grind, that's part of the fun. By comparison, if we click over and go to my account on Raid Shadow Legends here, the total number of characters in this game are insane. I mean, I think you have almost 1,000 characters between all the factions. Now the biggest difference here is there aren't any players in this game or any characters in this game that are behind a paywall. Now, some characters are really hard to get, like the mythical characters and the void legendary characters are extremely hard to get, but they can be achieved free to play. And you can see all the characters, the ones that are highlighted in gold, are characters that I have achieved throughout my tenure with Raid, and which, to be fair, was very long. It was very long. So the total number of characters is definitely important. The second thing is how you use those characters. So within Raid, I think they do an awesome job. When you come into these battle modes, you have the campaign farming, which is the same as story mode for GoG Guardians, but you also have these dungeons, and in the dungeons they have different mechanics that require different Guardians to be successful in the dungeon. So when you're fighting the dragon, it's not the same thing as fighting the spider or the ice golem or where do you go? Oh, there he is. Fire Knight, Keep. Like, all of these guys have different mechanics that make you need to build a separate team for each and every one of them. I don't know if it saved my teams from before or not, but if I come in here, yeah. So you'd have teams that would be saved for this specific dragon, and that would be a different team than if I go in and say, take a look at my Fire Knight team. And the benefit here is it encourages you to get different characters. There's areas of the game where even a rare character is going to be better than legendaries, just because of the mechanics of that particular Guardian. Like this Guardian, you have to bring their shield down by hitting them multiple times. It doesn't matter how hard you hit them, you just have to hit them multiple times. Well, this rare character has a skill where she hits 4 times in a row. So that makes her very valuable in this particular battle. So that would be one way of engaging content with multiple characters, building multiple teams. You also obviously have Arena, where you would build a focused Arena team, and usually is going to be a very fast team to get out in front of the other team and then use to kind of put your pressure on them. This is also a great aspect of the game, is the faction wars, where every faction has particular characters that you go in and you build a team, but it would force your hand to use only orcs. So in our case, maybe you have factions where you can only use tanks, or you can only use mages or support, and you had to go in and build an entire team of support trying to get through certain content. And that would press your account along and make you develop things that you typically wouldn't use. Like if you take a look at these particular characters, I don't know when I would ever use, say, Sandlash Survivor. I don't know when I'd really use her somewhere else. But here, she's great, because within this faction, she does the job I need her to do. But I built her up, I developed her so that I have her in that faction. And so that would press you to push into characters that currently in Guild of Guardians have zero use. Like Zedekis. When are you ever going to use Zedekis? Well, maybe somewhere in this space there would be a use case for Zedekis. Then you have your clan boss stuff, and this is really where your guild comes in, and then just different things where they cycle through. This is actually new. I haven't been in here in a long time, so I haven't seen the Curse City or the Siege or any of that. So, but there's different elements of the game that make you build different teams, which I think is very important to the success of the game. Where I think Raid falls down significantly, and where the Guild of Guardians is keeping things simple. So if you come into, I'm trying to remember how to do it. If you come into here and you take a look at your gear, there are hundreds of gear sets. So if we actually go to the top, let's do this. These are all the different types of gear. Now they're not specific to the Guardian. You can put any type of gear on any type of Guardian. You've got 6 pieces instead of 4, which is a little overwhelming, and you have artifacts as well as gear. So you have a total of 9 different pieces of gear for every Guardian, and based on how many Guardians you have, and you can see these are the Guardians that I have. Let's see if we can do this. I think, yeah. So if you're trying to actually gear all these Guardians out, it takes a lot of gear. But, over time, again, you build the teams that you need for progression in the game where you need it. That was another thing I was going to talk to you about over in dungeons. In these dungeons, you actually get gear pieces already made. And you have a chance of dropping legendary gear. And the harder dungeons you fight, the better chances of those gear drops. So every time you fight in this space, you're potentially bettering your account. Whereas like when you look at endless mode, you're like, okay, I'm accruing certain tokens, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, but you're never getting a drop of a gear piece that's going to improve your team. So there's not really a huge incentive to do it, because you're sitting there and you're like, well, it's going to be what it is. And so I think that adding that to the game where you could actually get gear pieces or certain kind of big drops that would advance your account, or even players, it would be a huge win. Now in this game, where you really get is summoning stones. Like when you have these summoning stones, you can see like these are the different summoning stones you can get within the game. These will give you epic or legendary characters all the way to rare through legendary, and then common through rare. These are the currency of the game, because you want to pull these characters and you wait for chances to get specific characters that you're aiming to get, and they do different events and so forth. But I have never had 1,000 of these of the ancient shards, for example. I've never had 1,000 because I can't wait that long to pull them, because I want to get new characters. And so with that in mind, when we go back over and we take a look at Guild of Guardians and going into the summon, it's not the same. Like there's just no incentive for me to pull these summoning stones. I'm connecting to a server apparently, but I have all these summoning stones, and there's just 2 versions, which I kind of like. I like that it's not overly complicated. You have summoning stones and you have calling crystals, and that's it. Now I do think they could do better at potentially giving you better chances, better drop rates, by adding a better summoning stone, or because the calling crystals are really geared towards these particular characters and trying to kind of make them free to play, even though they're really not. So you could kind of leave those in their own bracket, but maybe do something where you do an enhanced summoning stone. But again, you would have to have characters that you want to pull, and frankly, this just isn't it. This isn't it. And there's not enough characters. Like even if we were talking about those different elements of the game where you need to build new teams and new characters, there's just not enough characters to do it. Like you're stuck in this space of, if you want to play this game, you almost need to go buy characters. But the reality is there's no incentive to buy characters, because there's nothing in the game that you can't do with normal characters. So yeah, you might be able to go through runs a little faster. Yeah, you might be able to go a little further in endless. But honestly, realistically, it almost feels like you'd rather not go further in endless, because it takes less time if you don't go as far. And that's where this game, I think, is really falling down. I think they're adding elements like the artifacts and the potions and the pets and stuff like this that are getting into the increasingly complicated aspect of the game before the fundamentals are there. And I think that's part of the problem is you get, like, coming back to Raid, I'll be honest with you, I was extremely overwhelmed with everything going on in this game right now. And I can't imagine trying to enter this game as a new player and trying to figure all this stuff out. Like, there's just so much going on. Like, they entered this where you can now do soul stones to upgrade your character in that way. You can now upgrade, I think it was relics. They've never had relics before. So there's so many different ways to upgrade your character, and you can increase gear. So you have the gold stars or the purple stars. Here you can get red stars and purple stars. Like, it's so much. It's too much, to be honest with you. And that's part of the reason I left the game, is they just kept adding things where you're like, you finally get a character maxed out, and now there's 5 more things you can do to max them out, so you never really get to progress. So it's just constantly stuff going on. You got the challenges and everything else. But there's a reason I left Raid, and I'm not saying Raid is a great game and is the end-all be-all. I'm just saying some of those aspects, if they brought into this game, would be a huge benefit if they were to increase those game modes where you were using other characters. Now, again, it all comes back to, we need more characters. It's surprising to me that this isn't on their agenda. I don't know if their sole plan is to continue to launch new characters and being able to pull those with summoning stones, but honestly, running 2 a month is not going to do it. Like, they need to be dropping 20 characters a month for the next year to get this where it needs to be, and of those 20 characters, 18 of them need to be free to play. And that's the other thing with Raid, is that, like, I think I might have mentioned it already, there's nothing in the game you can't get free to play. There's every character is available. You're gonna have to grind it out. You're gonna have to work harder. The one thing that I will say that GoG Guardians has over Raid that I really like is, if there is a character in GoG Guardians, you have a way to get that character. There is, like, if you absolutely wanted Tian Long, you can go get Tian Long. But you might have to spend, you might have to save calling crystals, you might have to do some different things in order to do that. But you could get that character. Whereas in Raid, you don't have that. If you really wanted a Lysandra, for example, I was trying to get Lysandra for 4 years. I finally pulled her. She's not even a legendary. She's just a standard legendary character. She's been in the game since I started playing. Never pulled her. And all the summonings I've done, and I've probably done thousands of summons in that game. Yeah, I mean, it took me 4 years to get her, and by the time I got her, I was kind of burnt out on the game anyway, so I never even really used her. But it was something where that character could have enhanced so many different teams for me, but I never got a chance to actually use her because by the time I got her, I was burnt out. Whereas in this game, if you want a character, I mean, worst case scenario, you can go into the Token Trove and purchase that character. You could also go free to play, build up a character, earn tokens, although it doesn't seem like tokens are coming in the game as much as I was hoping. But you could build a character, sell that character that you have, and build up enough money to buy the character that you want, which I think is really cool. The other aspect of this is these characters are NFTs and therefore have value, assuming there's a market for them. Whereas when you come over here to Raid, you can see all those characters I have. I can't trade these to other people. I can't sell them. I can't even sell my account. So this just dies with me not logging into the game anymore. All of my effort for 4 years just dies. Whereas with GoG Guardians, that is a really cool aspect of this game, is if I decide I don't want to play this game anymore, theoretically I can go in and sell the characters that I've made. Now the reality is I'm not going to recoup half of what I've put into the game by selling these characters, because the market has gone down so much. But I do think there's a lot of potential here. I just think there needs to be a lot of growth, specifically in the Guardians and what to do with those Guardians. And I think those two things go hand in hand. I don't think we're at a point in the game where pets are necessary. So I was looking at the pets and what they bring to the game. You have different rarities: common, rare, epic, and legendary. And then each of these have different abilities. So like these help you with crafting resources. The scouts will help you get better drop items, which I'm not sure what you're hoping to drop. Maybe you get more endless tokens or something like that. and then the hunters will increase dungeon completion rewards. So you get more rewards when you have those guys equipped. But the reality is, we're not at a point in the game where this is necessary. There's not enough going on in here that you need pets. There's nothing, like, I'm not even sure when I would ever want to use a potion. And as much resources it takes to earn them, it'd be interesting to find out where they expect us to use this material. Because it seems like you sit here and in your guild, you're crafting, or you're doing the boss and you're donating and you're doing all this stuff, and you go in to craft something and you have to have your guild leader do it, as far as I know. And so without communicating with your guild leader, and maybe you have a guild leader who's not very good, now all of a sudden, like, what if I really want this piece? And I'm like, hey, I want to forge this, but we did this one. You know, like, that seems really bizarre to me. That I don't know. There's mechanics in there that are pretty weird. But going back to my point, there's not things in the game that require this extra stuff. I mean, maybe if I'm trying to progress an adventure and I can't beat that last level, I could use a potion to better my team so that I could beat the level, so then I could sweep it. But honestly, like, if you're using potions to progress, it kind of feels cheap in a way. Like, I didn't earn it. Like, I need my team to be stronger in order to do it. So another thing, going back to the gear and crafting, I think crafting gear is an interesting idea. I can tell you personally, clicking this button 1,000 times and then clicking auto merge 1,000 times and then going into my material box 1,000 times and clicking use and all these excess clickings that I need to do all the time, it isn't enjoyable. Like, this is not fun for me. And then the amount of resources, like, I maxed this out today. I didn't do these 30 because these ads in here are just ridiculous. I don't know why they put those in there. But I did all of that, and I think I made 10 total pieces. And you can see on materials, I have a lot of material, but I had other material boxes I used already today. So that's not the limiting factor. The limiting factor is the base materials, the ribbon, the stone, and the leather. That's the limiting factors, and you only get that this way. So that's where I'm at. And I think I made 8 pieces, and I had a stockpile of things going on. Of those pieces, none of them were legendary, not a single one. So that's kind of an interesting aspect too. Started making some of this gear. So I think that if you had dungeons where that material was dropping and you're actually gaining tier 6, tier 7 gear, epic and legendary, it would incentivize you to fight in those dungeons, because every time you fight in the dungeons, you might get a piece of gear that betters your team. Every time. And so you would try to build teams that get through the dungeons quickly so that you could farm them faster, so that you could do the thing. And that's one of the things in Raid, is in the dungeons farming, you cannot sweep the dungeons. You have to actually battle the dungeons, so you're incentivized to build teams that are fast to get through the dungeons quickly, so that you don't have a minute run every time you want to run Dragon, for example. Whereas I think the sweeping is definitely a benefit, but there has to be aspects of the game that you cannot sweep, because it incentivizes you to build teams that are more that are quicker and more efficient. And so I think, but they have to be engaging. There has to be a reason to do it. And frankly, endless isn't it. Like, I don't have any interest in running endless. I have these 13 tokens. I still have to go through high, then expert, then master, then legendary. And I'm not going to get anything in here that's going to change my account. I'm going to get some resources that help out, but I'm not getting, there should be calling crystals in here, 5 times calling crystals. There should be things that would really benefit. These should be like pieces of gear. Again, we have the scrolls in here. I don't even know what the scrolls are for anymore, because as you upgrade your commander level, you don't even need scrolls, as best I can tell. And maybe I'm wrong, but those are the kind of things where it incentivizes your players to come in and play and try to better their teams. Like, you could earn GoG tokens in here, where then you could go and buy characters. And I'm not saying a lot. I'm down for the grind. I love a good grind. But let's just say you got in here and down here around, I don't know where this max is. I think it's like 10 million or something. but you got in here all the way down to the final level, and as you started getting deep into, like maybe at a 1 million, at 5 million and 10 million, you could earn GoG tokens. And then you could take those GoG tokens and go buy characters you want to buy. And you'd be earning, I don't even know what the translation would be, but like 50 and 100. And then over the course of 3 or 4 cycles of running endless, you might be able to afford one Tianlong or one epic character or something that just makes you feel like this is worthwhile. Like this is a goal I have, this is where I want to get to. And you know, like, what am I going to do with 180 endless tokens? That's not a reward that I care about. If I go to the endless shop, what do I even spend my endless tokens on? I buy scrolls, and I buy these guys, and I buy these guys. I've got 45,000, and I don't even know what I'm going to use them for. So that's not going to be what wins the game for us. So this probably felt a little more like a rant on GoG Guardians, but I think the reality of it is I do see so much potential in this game, and I like so many aspects of this game. But it's just not there. And I think that when we look at the player base, and I was doing some research yesterday and found that it seems to me that around 11,000 active users, and it has been steady. Like it started, I think it was 14,000 active users it was August or September, and then it kind of dropped down in September, and then they stopped giving you an accurate count, and then in December on some weird chart it looks like there was 11,000 that were like daily login folks. So it seems like it's kind of leveling out at 11,000, but that's the reason for that. They have over 1 million downloads. So out of 1 million people, I think it was 1.2 million downloads, 11,000 are still playing the game. And that tells you something. And I don't think that pushing progress in pets and potions and changing in the rush boss is going to do it. Like that's not what's going to make this game come to the next level. The thing that's going to make this game come to the next level is, like I said, we need a lot more characters in the game that are free to play, accessible, and we need reasons to use those characters. So hopefully somebody's watching, they look at it and say, you know what, that's right, let's get that done. Let's figure that out and start bringing that into the game. But, you know, other than that, that's just me and my humble opinion. So I have been looking at other games just to see if there's anything else I want to cover. I tried Watcher of Realms today. It's kind of like a tower guardian defense game. It doesn't seem to be a lot of strategy in it. Frankly, it was just, I mean, it was fun-ish, but after about an hour, I was like, I'm kind of done. But you do collect different characters, and the characters do different things, so it kind of has a similar feel. But with the tower guard or guarding the tower defense system was kind of a unique spin on it that I did enjoy for a little bit. But I am kind of looking at different games that kind of have more of this feel. Ideally, they'd be play to earn, because I really think that's a really cool aspect of this game. And it might just be something I got to put down for, you know, a few months, maybe a year, and come back to it when they get their stuff together. Because I think they will figure it out. I think they have a good structure to their game. They just need to start adding the day-to-day stuff to make it enjoyable for the players, and hopefully the 1 million people come back, you know, that have downloaded the game and want to give it another try. But you know, when you put a bad taste in players' mouths, sometimes it's hard to get rid of it. So it'll be interesting. But that's about what I got for you today. Hopefully you found that interesting. But it's just kind of me and my 2 cents, and that's all they're worth. So I appreciate you, and I look forward to seeing you next time.